Hello and welcome on the Watches TV. Welcome on Primetime Watchmaking in the News, and we have quite a show for you coming back on some of the most pertinent news of the recent days and weeks. And there are a few. So with no further ado, let's go over this edition's program. A bit of cool new product revelation, Patek Philippe, MBNF, Armstrong, De Bethune, H. Moser, Hublot, and more. A zest of industry news in this complex context. Latest situation here in Switzerland, but also LVMH finally going through with the Tiffany's acquisition and more or less at the same time cleverly taking a stake into Hodinkee. Surprising Philippe Dufour news, a bit of industry auto celebration with the GPHG, naturally a rather strange format this year, some strong result on the auction scene, and a few sneak peeks regarding contents to be shared with you very shortly. So yes, this is a pretty dense edition, and let's start with the recent launches. And just wanted to say that after popular demand, well, we will now also mention prices of these timepieces, but only in prime time. And you guys know that we don't often talk about prices because we don't want that watch to be judged only by this dimension. In my view, one should not like a painting because it's worth 1, 5 or 10 million, but what it triggers deep into you or not when you look at it. And for me, it should be the same when we're talking watchmaking art. So this means that I will round these prices. It will give you a good enough approximation of the final price on your different markets. And to make it simple, well, I will use dollars and will most of the time be like around XXX dollar mark. So let's go, and we'll first talk of Patek Philippe, as they just introduced a pretty spectacular Grande Sonnerie. Yes, Grande Sonnerie are always spectacular, and actually I find it quite refreshing that we have seen a few examples in recent times of what is generally agreed upon as being the most prestigious and most complex high complication only mastered by a few. 3 years ago we had seen Grubel Forces take on it after 11 years of development, just beautiful and proving the intricacy behind such mechanism. Then the Vacheron Constantin variant, but more or less based on the same construction. Then recently the Audemars Piguet, and we are also aware of another extremely special one currently in development. But anyhow, now Patek with this elegant and classical looking timepiece, the 6301P. So it comes in a 44.8mm platinum case, something quite original, as it is often said that platinum present less acoustic performances, but we can trust Patek to have taken this into consideration and compensated it with some other twists. For instance, I mean, it's not water resistant because you don't want the sound to be trapped within the case. And same can be said regarding the see-through caseback, which you can swap to a solid platinum version, but they did not mention the acoustic effect of this swap, but I would presume that it has one. Regarding the chiming aspects, well, you can choose between Grande Sonnerie, Petite Sonnerie or silent mode with a discrete sliding lever found at 6 o'clock, and naturally this is also a minute repeater giving you time on demand that you can activate with the pusher found on the crown. So another interesting feature and original technical feature, I would say, is the small deadbeat second, something we have also seen more often in recent times with other brands. So this movement is made out of 703 components, and there are a few links with the Grandmaster chime presented for the 175th anniversary of the brand. And you guys probably remember that the one and only steel version going for 31 million at the Only Watch auction last year. So but coming back on this new model, it is manually hand wound, holds 72 hours of power reserve for the time telling mechanism and 24 hours of power reserve for the Grande Sonnerie mode, thanks to a tandem connected twin mainspring barrel. And you can see these power reserve information on the dial at 3 and 9 o'clock. Personally, I like the elegance of this timepiece with this Grand Feu black enamel dial, these Breguet numerals, the railway track around it, this nice case, well, just looks pure and classical, but not as in old school. There is something nevertheless modern with this watch. Well, good job by Patek, and it doesn't seem to be limited, but will obviously be limited by production capabilities and by the size of your wallet. At around 1.2 million US dollars, well, you get what I mean. But I have absolutely no worries for Patek, and the queue must already be pretty long. Okay, next watch, and we'll go with something a bit more exuberant, as MBNF introduced a nice little revival of their very recognizable HM3 Frog, first launched 10 years ago, but now coming in a full sapphire case. So it, of course, keeps the originality of the two domes time display, the left one for the hours and the other one for the minutes, but this new edition comes into 3 different liveries, blue, violet and turquoise, and you will find matching colors on various components such as the characteristic Astéréo-H rotor, and each version is limited to 10 pieces, a pretty cool time-telling object for sure, and priced around $150,000. The next launch actually occurred a few weeks back when Armstrong decided to widen the range of its products and appeal more to a feminine market with the introduction of the Lady Beat, actually an evolution of their System 78 seen last year, but coming now in a smaller case of 38mm instead of 41. It houses the automatic ALA 20 caliber with 70 hours of power reserve, and it's an hour and minute only watch with this off-center dial and these distinctive 3 bridges found on the opposite near the crown. For the time being, there are 2 executions available, a black and a white one, with a simple and efficient design and priced around $18,000. H. Moser introduced a new variant of the Streamliner, coming now with a blue fumé dial, and I'm happy for the brand as it seems that this new chrono timepiece introduced earlier this year with its very own design is working actually pretty nicely for them. Always nice to hear some good news. So this timepiece will be made available as of December and is priced around $44,000 US. Okay, next watch with the Singer Flighttrack Prime Edition, and there is a little link with the Streamliner as it holds another version of the famous Hagengraph movement developed by Jean-Marc Viderecht and the team of Agenor. A movement, by the way, we have also just seen in a new Ming watch, the new 20 series, which was part of a special 3-piece lot during the last Philips auction, and we'll get back to this auction in a bit. Anyhow, this new Singer represents the first clue into what will be the second collection of the brand to be introduced early next year and simply called Flighttrack. But to make some noise around it, well, they chose to come up first with this Prime Edition coming with 3 variants, but the functionality of each one is the same. You have one with the tachymeter scale, the second one with the pulsometer, and the last one with the telemeter scale. So it's quite minimalist considering the movement inside, as it's a time display only. So same peripheral rotating disc for the hour indication, same as in the Track 1, same central minute hand, but it's regarding the seconds indication that we have something different. So this hand revolves continuously, but by pushing the button at 2 o'clock, it resets it to 0, like a flyback function. And with this, well, you will be able to measure a short period of time of less than 59 seconds, thus the 3 scales mentioned before, and each model is limited to 10 pieces, around $30,000. Okay, next, and Urwerk just launched a new version of its UR100, coming now in steel, and this one limited to 25 pieces. It uses the blue color for the hour and minute indication of this satellite display timepiece. Probably a first for the brand to use blue. I mean, I can't recall other models with this color. And as a quick reminder, the UR100 represents the entry-level product of the brand. Obviously not cheap, but let's say less expensive, just under $50,000. D'Habitude introduced a new version of their sport watch, the DB28 GS Yellow Submarine, kind of a mix of what we had seen at last year's Basel World, when the brand had shown us its titanium version, but also the DB28 Yellow Tone with this special heat-treated titanium case and components resulting in this very original color. So one of the cool features of this GS version is that it features a backlight system with 4 LEDs taking the energy from a dynamo, which itself gets its energy directly from the twin barrels. So this implies that using the lighting system will reduce the 5-day power reserve of the timepiece, but they are smart at D'Habitude, and below 1 day of power reserve, the pusher to light it up will become non-functional. Pretty cool, right? And quite an audacious looking sports watch, GS standing for Grand Sport, obviously. And yes, this is also to be a diver's watch, and it's limited to 25 pieces and priced just above $100,000. Okay, next timepiece, and it is actually a table clock, a beefed up version of Hublot's Mecha 10 with its 10 days of power reserve, but this time slightly slightly larger as the brand partnered with L'Épée to produce this pretty cool object coming in two slightly different versions. It's almost identical to the wristwatch version, only a few changes, especially with the placement of the escape wheel, and it's 13.5 centimeter in width and 7 centimeter in thickness. It's not limited, but quite pricey at around $50,000. And for the final timepiece, well, again, the table clock with the ex-Romain Jérôme team. So the RG brand went down early this year, but they managed to keep this collaboration going with their new company called Cross Studio. And they've just presented a very look-alike Batmobile from the 1990s movie that they've developed and manufactured in a rather short period of time with the additional help of some suppliers. But for once, L'Épée is not involved. So this table clock measures 30 centimeters, and the main particularity is that it holds 30 days of power reserve thanks to 3 barrels sitting at the back of the car. Cool object, nice souvenirs coming back to my mind, and just around $30,000. All right, let's now talk business. And as you can imagine, numbers as a whole for the industry are not great, but again, some are doing better than others. Some markets showing a few good signs, China in particular, but we know that mainland sales were not reflecting what Chinese consumers actually weighed, considering what they previously bought through travel retail, and obviously before the COVID situation. So I would say that it's just a realignment, and brands are thus currently really focusing on their commercial presence directly in China. There's a lot at stake for many on that market. Anyhow, we will very shortly get the new Swiss export figures of October, but I don't expect any miracles, though it really seems that the high-end segment of the industry is suffering less, confirming yet again that the Swiss industry as an industry is getting smaller and de facto focusing more on the very top of the pyramid. So this will have some great and severe consequences in terms of employment and in particular how suppliers are being hit. And no one really denies this, but it is widely thought that 2021 will really be the time when the storm hits more gravely the industry. So one of the aftermath of this situation is that LVMH finally finalized its acquisition of Tiffany's, getting a slightly better price, approximately $400 million less, on an overall price tag of $16 billion. Yes, we're talking serious money. But with that spared amount, LVMH VC firm have now put their pants on Hodinkee, the famous US media slash retailer or retailer slash media, I mean, however you want to see it. And we don't have all the details of this transaction, how many shares and so forth, majority or not, full buyout. But I have to say that this is a very clever move from LVMH, and indeed one that must probably annoy some other brands today, quite dependent on the commercial success of Hodinkee when it comes to selling some of their products. So now LVMH will have a nice access to all this information. I trust them to leverage this very intelligently. Again, a smart move. Okay, let's now talk GPHG, which just occurred a few days ago here in Geneva, and as you can imagine, the format was quite different from previous editions. Well, firstly, you indeed had this new academy thingy with a larger group of 350 industry experts participating in the selection process, a group of people to make things clear we are not part of, as we are not watch experts, it seemed. But then the format further evolved with a Swiss-only jury for the final phase because of all the various travel constraints that unenabled international jury members to gather, and Zoom for once is not an option. I mean, you do need to touch, feel, look in the details of these watches that were participating to make a proper opinion. But despite this, one can again say that the results have been a bit strange, or to put it differently or more directly, let's say that they've been quite political, and it's of course not the first time. So I find it a bit sad that this GPHG really has some serious issues defining who they are, what it is the purpose of this event, and it really feels like they are stuck between two worlds. I am all for the existence of the GPHG, and I strongly believe the industry deserves such a ceremony, but should it be a B2C event or B2B? Are you seriously going to buy a watch because it won a prize at the GPHG? Well, I sincerely doubt it, but it does put some of the industry players under the spotlight, and some benefit much more than others. I mean, small brands, independents, newcomers, it gives them a much welcome visibility that they can smartly activate. And in turn, this explains why most of the powerhouses are not participating simply because they don't need to. Would Rolex, Patek, Richard Mille, Journe sell more watches by winning prizes? Well, I guess you get my point. But nevertheless, it's sincerely nice for the teams that are working on some of these participating timepieces to feel that their work is being acknowledged and rewarded. So for instance, when Greubel Forsey won in the men's complication category with the handmade one, well, it's obviously super nice for all the great people who worked on this fantastic human adventure. But should this timepiece win in the complication category when precisely it has no complication, but was obviously, very complicated to produce, like you've hopefully seen in our documentary? And if you didn't see it, well, I clearly invite you to do so because it's really a film me and my small team are very proud of. Link is below. Well, this is just an example of some of this slight absurdity, and there are many more. So yes, I won't go into details of the results, and just wanted to say that I'm indeed happy for everyone, for Ferdinand Berthoud, Beauvais, Voutilainen, H. Moser, and in particular to our good friends Gaël Peterman and Florian Beda with their deadbeat seconds who won the Revelation Prize, which isn't a category, by the way. But yes, in this case, their award makes sense and will be very useful for them. Okay, I will still mention who won the main prize, the Aiguille d'Or, the golden hand for Piaget and their Altiplano Ultimate Concept, a super ultra thin watch of 2 mm, first seen a couple of years ago, but presented at the time as a concept watch, which they managed to now produce commercially, but we're talking less than 10 pieces per year. And it did feel like, in a certain way, making Piaget happy after having been kind of overshadowed by the recent and continuous success of Bulgari when it comes to ultra-thin watches. Well, all in all, it wasn't particularly exciting, and I still looked at the ceremony being live casted, and when you witness that we were just a few hundreds to do so, well, it kind of proves my point about being a very industry-centric event, and I don't see much harm with that, apart that it needs to seriously evolve. Otherwise, top brands will continue to turn away from it, but up to the organizers of the event to make it happen. And actually, maybe we should do our own little award. I talked about it a few years back, but it could be now the good time to think of something a bit different. Just another little idea, just saying. Okay, next topics with a short wrap-up of other industry news, and we will start with the Richemont Group, which is for sure going some serious phase of turmoil at every level. And it is now highly likely that we will see some upper management reshuffling there pretty soon. Well, when you think of all the amazing brands part of this group, and when I recall some 10-15 years ago how I was looking at this portfolio with such respect and admiration, and when you look at the situation today, well, it just seems quite incomprehensible and a bit sad. And if I think about the Swatch Group, well, I don't even want to go there. Just way too sad, unfortunately, and what a waste. Well, I sincerely hope these guys can all rebound, but with the inertia these groups have, I really don't know how things will evolve in this pretty confusing and short-term thinking environment with the pandemic and all. And even though we're talking serious brand equity there. Well, I had prepared a section with some news on the situation regarding watch shows for 2021, meaning that we were still in limbo. But we had to reshoot this part because since between yesterday when we recorded this edition and today, well, there has finally been some serious update and not a very positive one. Again, the COVID situation makes it pretty hard to know where things will evolve or how things will evolve, and therefore the organizers of Watches and Wonder have simply preferred to call it quit, and what was maybe meant to happen in early April has just been scratched from the agenda. So the situation was already complicated in discussion with the newcomers from ex-Basel world, meaning Rolex, Patek and the gang, and Watches and Wonder were going nowhere, it seems. Well, now at least it is clear, no big show for sure. Will some of these still want to do something on their own? Well, that still remains to be seen. Will we go in the direction of a muscle-up version of Geneva Watch Days? Maybe. And sounds like a highly probable solution, as we know that Basel World, now called Our Universe, is really trying to be as nice as possible to get brands back under their roof. But obviously this is quite a challenge with so many people simply put off by going back there. There is also the Lausanne opportunity with the Imagination Fair set to occur also in early April, but seriously, it's still too early to say who will be the winners out of this rather messy situation. We'll keep you posted, and we go back to Primetime. Okay, let's now quickly talk auctions, as there were a few of them taking place in Geneva recently with all main houses, but they all had to adapt to the particular circumstances of the moment with a mix of online, phone, reserve bids. And as always, I mean, Philips in association with Bax and Russo topped the lot and made things quite exciting. But in general, sales were good for everyone. And a good aspect about all this is that it continuously accentuates the fact that watches are a good asset. And I'm not saying all watches, of course, but there is indeed something comforting about it. So the main highlight was most probably the Patek Philippe World Timer from 1954, which fetched an impressive $5 million, a new record, but at the same time, some other interesting thing occurred. One of the sales was dedicated to watches of the first 20 years of the 21st century, and in this lot, a special Philippe Dufour, a watch celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Simplicity, reached a very solid price, slightly above $1.4 million. Quite a price, right? But what is even more interesting is that we have just learned that Mr. Philippe Dufour partnered with world-class collector Claude Sfer to represent him commercially. So this is naturally a first for Philippe Dufour, and I think it's seriously not a bad thing that his business gets structured in such a way, since he was often the last person to benefit from the crazy appeal his watches fetch on this second-hand market. And I know this is not really how it should be phrased, but yes, some intermediary people made quite a lot of money with his watches. But things will for sure change, and we'll definitely hear more about this in the coming days and weeks. But again, I'm very happy for him. Well, I guess we are finally reaching the end of this prime time. There were indeed a few things to talk about, and just wanted to let you know that we have some cool videos coming your way. For instance, we will finally very soon publish this visit of the beautiful new Audemars Piguet Museum. But after such high-priced watches covered in this edition, well, we'll also come back on some more affordable watch options for you in this coming holiday season. For instance, the one I am wearing today. And yes, we also know how to talk about other options. Anyhow, thanks a lot for watching and sharing our videos. Thanks so much to our patrons to help us make it happen. And you are all welcome to join, links somewhere below. And for instance, well, we had our first live session with some of you guys, and that was mighty cool and to be repeated. So the very best to all of you. Thanks again. See you real soon, and a massive Viva Watchmaking to all. Bye.